Hello guys, this is Pavel Askarov from Laravel Daily Team and YouTube channel Laravel Business, where sometimes I shoot videos from my car about web development from business side. As being a project manager and business owner now, I'm still between two worlds, developer and team leader of Laravel Daily Team, so I can talk about both worlds. And topic of the day is why the projects are late. Almost all of the projects are late. And what are the reasons, what are things to consider and to think about why they shouldn't be late and how to make it, well, less late, let's put it this way. So what people don't count when scoping. So usually the first conversation or round of conversations between developers and clients come up with some kind of estimate of time. It's not about budget, we're talking about time here. So there's a time frame and how it usually is calculated. It's usually a list of functions, so we can build this function in this amount of time, that function in that amount of time, and we round up in total of, for example, 3 months or something. And it's usually amount of hours or days. And what do people miss there? Usually that's kind of skipped. Thing number one is integrations. So when thinking about one function and another function, they usually calculate the separate amount of hours working on separate functions. But usually they're built together. So for example, you work on Vue.js frontend, and then you work on API and you count those hours. But you should count the hours to integrate Vue with API, with potential risks of their not working together well. And stuff happens usually unplanned when you try to stick functions together. Usually in even bigger project, it's even bigger nightmare that you realize that something doesn't work with some other function, especially written by other developers. So there is a conflict of code or code base basically not working, and you should add some time to integrate the functions, not only listing them separately. So that's number one. Thing number two that is missed is surprising things. I would call it surprises. So things that doesn't work as planned. For example, some library is outdated. So for example, something doesn't work in some Laravel version. Something doesn't work on your server environment. Something doesn't work, some library that you picked up or package doesn't have such a feature that you absolutely need. And you wouldn't guess that thing, even no matter the amount of research you did before. There are always surprises. There are always things that don't work as planned. Or for example, you use third-party API for something like MailChimp or Mailgun or whatever, and they decide to shut down or raise their prices, and you have to switch the provider. So a lot of surprises happen no matter what. You don't have to, you cannot just basically guess the future, what happens. So for those, I tend to do like 10 or 20% more to the scope, to the timeline, just because of surprises, because they do happen all the time on every project. So these are two things to consider. And then there are two more things. So what happens during the project is a waiting time. So thing number three is there are always delays, there are always waiting time for a lot of people actually. Usually it's waiting for the client to provide something, to test the alpha version, to provide images or text, to provide the feedback from their end client, because sometimes your client isn't the end client, the actual people that would use the application. So waiting for feedback, rounds of testing, rounds of copy changes, even waiting for your developers. You may get sick or one of your teammates. A lot of things happen well, basically it's idle time. You just wait for something, or client waits for something, and while scoping a project for 3 months, you should consider that in reality it would be 4 months at least, because there is a lot of waiting time happening. And final thing that I want to mention, the fourth thing that is missed or that is getting in the way of project being delivered on time, is things can be finalized only when it's done visually. So what happens usually, it's in alpha stage or beta stage, when you provide the client the first version to test, then they see something being illogical or missing, or they start to rearrange things, rethink things, and usually during those 2 or 3 months until that stage, their thinking changes. Some even circumstances change. Their financial circumstances can change. A lot of things can change during that time, and they could come up with new ideas, new changes. And usually developers are really mad at those clients that change their mind. But as I became a client myself with our quick admin panel, so I'm the client and my teammates deliver the code, I realized that it's inevitable. So that's in human nature, to change their mind, to strive for perfection, to try to make it better. So only when the first version is visually clickable, testable, and you can just test it in real time, in real life, in whatever form, then you start thinking about real project, how it should look in the final version. So that is also inevitable. Therefore, I add usually 20 to 25% of time on just that phase, on the phase of client changing their mind for the final version. Usually it raises the budget. Well, it depends on how strict is the first budget, initial budget, but yeah, it adds time inevitably. And don't be mad at clients for that. If you are a client yourself, you would definitely do the same thing or similar. So it's a human nature. It's simple, it's natural, and it's fine. Just keep the time in mind. So if you plan for 3 months, in reality you should plan for 4 to 5 at least, until final launch. So these are 4 reasons I think that are getting in the way of projects getting done on time. I hope it's helpful, and see you in the next videos.